Welcome back to DSR Channel Week 9, and I'm going over the new book that just released this morning, The Forgotten Realms: Heroes of Faerun, and this is a book I've been very excited for, especially since the Artificer book got delayed so long. So this is the first book we've had, expansion book we've had, since the release of the core rules for 2024. And this is the Banneret Fighter subclass, and they blew it. My disappointment is infinite. I can't believe they did this. So, all right, well, let's get into it, I guess. I don't know what else to say about that. Flavor text: The Banneret Fighter. Rally fellow heroes with inspiring leadership. Bannerets are paragons of valor and leadership who protect the innocent and rally fellow adventurers to the causes of justice and freedom. Many are knights serving in Cormyr, the Silver Marches, Damara, Chisentia, or other lands across Faerun. They wander the realms as knights errant, taking the fight against evil beyond their kingdom's borders. A banneret relies on judgment, bravery, and fidelity to the code of chivalry to guide them in defeating evildoers. A lone banneret is a skilled warrior, but when leading a band of allies, one of these warriors can transform even a poorly equipped militia into a ferocious war band. So awesome flavor text, and Cormyr, at least specifically, is the Forgotten Realms version of like King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. So very cool thematically, very cool flavor and lore, and I think that's maybe one of the reasons why so many people are upset about the subclass in the original printing, is that when you're very excited for the idea of something, to have the mechanics just completely fail you is even more disappointing, right? Um, and nobody liked the 2014 version from the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, which was the first time this subclass was printed. Nobody liked it. I think I was the only person who was ever like, I mean, it's not horrible, it's better than no subclass. Like, you can still use it. But the only time I ever saw any of the hundreds of players I've played with play a Purple Dragon Knight was because I homebrewed a version of it where I just gave them 1/3 Paladin spellcasting, like an Eldritch Knight, but it was Paladin, the Paladin spell list. And that's the only time I saw anybody ever play it, and it was fine. It was okay. But yeah, okay. So I just wanted to point out that if you see there, I'm going to compare this with the texts from the original printing in Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. You can see that Banneret is not an entirely new term, right? They called it the Purple Dragon Knight before because that was the specific name for the knights from Cormyr. But they said use Banneret as the genericized name if you're a knight from some other kingdom. Okay, so they just swapped that. So now Banneret is the default name, which is probably the way it should be, right? The default name should be the generic name, and then you can just write your backstory or whatever you like, and add in specific details like what country, what nation you're from, and what specific knighthood you're a part of. At level 3, we get Knightly Envoy as our first of 2 features. You know how to conduct yourself with grace as a noble ambassador. You gain the following benefits: Comprehension, you can cast the Comprehend Languages spell, but only as a ritual. Charisma is your spellcasting ability for it. Polyglot, you learn one language from the language tables in the player's handbook or chapter 2 of this book. When you finish a long rest, you can replace a language learned from this benefit with another language you have heard, seen, signed, or read in the past 24 hours. And well spoken, you gain proficiency in one of the following skills of your choice: insight, intimidation, persuasion, or performance. And that's it. And I've put up the level 7 ability from the Sword Coast Adventures Guide version because that has some equivalency here. So first up, comprehend languages. That's fine. Cast it as a ritual. That's cool. It comes up once in a while, like a few times a campaign. It's not very often. Polyglot. This is probably going to come up. I don't know. The problem is that you need a long rest, and so how many situations are there going to be where you meet somebody, you can't talk to them, and then you're like, hold on, let me take a whole day to take a break, and I'm going to learn your language, and then you can talk to them. I just don't see that coming up very often. Probably the most reasonable usage of this is you go through your party and say, what languages does everybody have, and what language, and we're going into a place that's known to have like goblins, and nobody speaks goblin. Okay, I'm going to choose goblin or orc or whatever it is, right? That's the most likely value usage of this. And frankly, it's a lot weaker than telepathy, right? The knowledge cleric got telepathy at level 6, which just basically just means language is meaningless, at least from, communicating with other creatures. You can use telepathy to communicate with anyone who speaks any language. And they got this instead. And they're supposed to be this like envoy. And so this is just disappointing. But then you get a skill proficiency, which if you've watched my channel at all, you know I like skill proficiencies. I think they're a lot more than just, you know, a ribbon feature. But I call for a lot of ability checks, a lot. Like you'll make in a session with me 10 ability checks, okay? Um, so I call for a lot of them. So I do like this, but it just hurts that the 2014 version got expertise and we're not getting expertise. Yeah, okay, we got comprehend languages and one movable language, but but the 2014 version got expertise and this version is not. And nobody liked the 2014 version. They took a bad subclass and made it worse. WotC, what are you doing to us? Come on. Our next feature at level 3, group recovery. So this is the equivalent of what the 2014 Sword Coast Adventures Guide version called Rallying Cry. Group recovery. When you use your second wind to regain hit points, you can choose a number of allies within a 30-foot emanation originating from yourself up to a number of allies equal to your charisma modifier, minimum of 1. Each of those allies regains hit points equal to 1d4 plus your fighter level. Once you use this ability, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. So the Sword Coast Adventures Guide version had a 60-foot range, and it just gave you 3 allies. So now we got to have it's a number of allies equal to our charisma modifier. So now, and we're definitely not going to have a 16. I mean, you could have a 16 in charisma at level 3, but that would mean you have a lower constitution for that, or you had to, you know, dump even more, you know, and ability scores to 8. So that is not a good trade-off. They're like tying you down to the charisma ability score and giving you very little for it. Also note that the area or range of this ability, they reduced it. In 2014, you had a 60-foot range. In this version, it's a 30-foot range. But they added 1d4 hit points of healing. So what the heck, guys? 1d4 hit points does not compensate for all that you took away there. So this is a much weaker ability. And they didn't even like, so in the 2014 version, it was just tied to whenever you use second wind, right? So with the base class fighter, you have more uses of second wind, starting with 2, and then you have, you know, I think by this level or by level 6, you've got 3, and then eventually 4 uses, and they come back 1 on a short rest. In the 2014 version of fighter, it's only 1 per short rest. And so if you just use the old version of this subclass with the new version of the fighter class, you would have gotten to use this ability a lot more often. But now that they've reprinted the subclass, you can see that, yes, it's still tied to you using second wind, but you only get to do this modification of second wind once per short rest. Why? Why? You had an opportunity for greatness and you blew it. All right, moving on. 7, team tactics. Okay, when you use group recovery, which is your 3rd level ability, right? Each chosen ally has advantage on D20 tests until the start of your next turn. So it's every D20 test, attack rolls, ability checks, saving throws, which is nice, but it's only till the start of your next turn, which is not a lot of time. So it's basically 1 round of advantage on everything, which is good. So this is our first real upgrade over the 2014 version of this. Now, I'll remind you, group recovery is still once per short rest, and you also have to expend a second wind when you do it. So you're going to do this. Your whole level 7 ability is a 1 round feature that you can do once per short rest, once per short or long rest. It hurts my soul that they did this. Like, you're killing me, Smalls. Like, this would have been cool if you just let it go off with every time you use second wind, which is 2 to 4 times per day plus once per short rest. That would have been awesome. That would have been very cool. If they just changed that text, this would have been great. And you can see there that this is the old level 7 version. We saw it previously. All it did is give you proficiency with persuasion and expertise in it, and you could choose, you know, a different skill with a proficiency if you already had persuasion. So, yes, this is the first real upgrade, but it's a small upgrade. Small upgrade. Level 10, Rallying Surge. When you use your action surge, you can choose allies within a 30-foot emanation originating from yourself, up to a number of allies equal to your charisma modifier, minimum of 1. Each of those allies can immediately take a reaction to use one of the following options. Attack, the ally makes one attack with a weapon or an unarmed strike. Move, the ally moves up to half its speed without provoking opportunity attack action. Without provoking opportunity attack action. That's a strange wording. It should be just without provoking opportunity attacks, I think. And what did we have before in 2014? So basically the same thing, except it was tied to only one ally. It had a 60-foot range. So we had a 60-foot range, not a 30. So a downgrade on the range. It only worked on one ally. How high is our charisma going to be at this level? Probably 14, because we're going to take our strength to 20 first, and we got to get all of the attack feats, right? So we're not going to just do a +2 to strength with one of our feat choices. We're going to take like Sentinel and Great Weapon Master and Polearm Master and Mage Slayer and take all these things before we start pumping up our charisma, probably. Or if you don't, you're going to fall behind the other marshals, I guess. So we're probably only doing 2 allies anyway, which is a little better, I guess. And they also added unarmed strikes, and you have an option for them to move. So if you have a high enough charisma, you can have all your like backliners move away and get out of range. Skirmishers can move and get away, which is nice, and all of your marshals can just attack. So it's if you get your charisma really high, this could be nice. It is better, not a lot better. And I just want to point out that the second half of Inspiring Surge is that at 18th level you can choose 2 allies within the 60-foot radius instead of 1. And that is the only feature that the old version of the Purple Dragon Knight got at level 18. That's your whole level 18 feature right there. So they get another level 18 feature. Honestly, it's not much better. It's kind of a trick, honestly. And you'll see here in a sec. Level 15, Shared Resilience. When an ally you can see within 60 feet of yourself, so we finally get the 60 foot, okay? Jeez. See within 60 feet of yourself, fails the saving throw, you can take a reaction to expend a use of your Indomitable feature. The ally can immediately re-roll the saving throw with a bonus equal to your fighter level. The ally must use the new roll. Okay, so this just lets us expend our Indomitable and use it on behalf of an ally now. That's cool. What we got before was Bulwark, which was similar. Okay? If we were subjected to an effect that caused us to use Indomitable to reroll an Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma saving throw, then we could also use it on an ally. Like both of you got it, right? So if the party were hit by Synaptic Static and 2 of you failed, you and that ally could both reroll. Now, with the 2014 version of the fighter, Indomitable was worse because it was just a reroll. There was no bonus. But if you just use the old version of this subclass with the new version of the fighter class, that version was better because you 2 of you got a reroll with the fighter bonus. I mean, I guess it specifically says at the end there that they don't get the fighter bonus. So at least you got the fighter bonus and they got a reroll. So it benefited 2 of you. I don't know. Like this is, again, yeah, I guess it's a slightly better than the 2014 version, but not a lot better. And come on, the 2014 version of Purple Dragon Knight was terrible. Nobody liked it. They didn't need a small, tiny, miserly upgrade. They needed meaty upgrades. What the heck happened? I'm just gonna, I gotta stop, or I'm gonna start molting here from being ticked off so much. All right, moving on to level 18. Inspiring Commander. You gain the following benefits. Bolstered Rally. The area effect for both your group recovery and rallying surge is now a 60-foot emanation. Finally! We finally get the 60 feet that the old version always had. And that's our level 18 capstone. Son of a nutcracker. Okay. We got to keep going. Unshakable Bravery. You have immunity to the charmed and frightened conditions. Great, I guess. I mean, yeah, charmed and frightened come up a lot, especially at higher levels, and you're going to enjoy being immune to them. But frankly, you solved this a long time ago, right? You're not going to just wait around getting blown, controlled and taken out of fights by charmed and frightened for 18 levels. You took Mage Slayer, you got magic items, you have allies who are helping with this or something. So by the time you get this, you're gonna be like, oh, well, that's kind of nice. I mean, it hasn't been a big deal for a lot of levels because we solved it this way, but no, I guess that's nice. I guess I don't need to attune to that magic item or carry it around with me anymore. And then the other half is just to increase the 60-foot emanation, which, by the way, I know I'm making a big deal out of that because you just got it for free before. But 60-foot versus 30-foot, not a big deal. It is not very often that your ally is going to be that far away. You're not going to be that spread out. So it's just disappointing on top of disappointing on top of like insulting. This is an unequivocal thumbs down, right? The UA, the Unearthed Arcana version of this was exciting, right? They just redesigned the whole thing, and you were a purple dragon knight. You had a purple dragon pet. Your pet was a amethyst dragon, and it was kind of like the Drake Warden Ranger. Man, it had so much potential. It was exciting and interesting, and I gave him the feedback like, you need to tweak this a bit, but please do not throw this away. Don't go back to the old version. Please keep running with this purple dragon pet concept. And they threw it away. WTF? I thumbs down. I'm done. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time, hopefully.